the first thing was he was a patched member of the Outlaws motorcycle.
Mm-hmm. So what is patched, actually, if you can explain that?
So he was a 1%er. I mean, he was a full member. You know, he wore the patch, you know, on his cut, the Outlaws. And he was also a member of the outfit, Mike Sarno's family there. So it was the first time they had seen these two entities working together. You know, the Italian mafia was actually using the bikers to do a lot of their dirty work, to do hits, bombings, all sorts of stuff. So in this case, it had revolved around the video poker machines that they put in the stores and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
The outfit was putting those into the stores, and they didn't really. If they told you they were putting them in your store, they weren't really asking you. You know what I mean? They were telling you.
Right.
And I guess it revolved around one. There was one guy with these video poker machines who refused to play ball, and so they bombed this place. And it was this guy. It was under Sarno. It was Polchain. So they were trying to get into this guy. He was not a convicted felon. He was very smart. They had made run after run at this guy to set him up, and he sniffed everyone out. The FBI had sent 3 people in to try and get him. 2 of them were dirty cops who were his childhood friends he had grown up with, and he sniffed them all out, man. I mean, he was sharp. So I got sent in on this dude cold, no informant, nothing, just cold. He had a jewelry store in Cicero, which was just a total front. He had several layers to even get in, and in the back he was meeting with every gang in Chicago, like the Gangster Disciples, the Outlaws, the Mafia, every street gang, and he was moving all sorts of stolen equipment through there, flat screen TVs, you name it. He was every crime you can think of. Home invasions, armed robberies, burglaries, they were all being set up there. They were hitting the 18-wheelers, right? Like if an 18-wheeler was full of flat screens on its way to Best Buy, the driver would stop, walk out of the truck, they'd jump in and take it. It was all set up that way. And so actually my mission was to get in good enough with him that he would start selling me this stuff because they were having trouble. They needed to pin all this stolen stuff back to the actual shipments. You know what I mean? And it's not like a gun. A gun is very easy to trace. But, televisions, even with the serial numbers and the lot numbers, are very difficult to trace back to what truck took them and what shipment, where they were headed and all that. So they needed to start buying this stuff. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, man. I just showed up cold at his store, and he didn't want nothing to do with me. My role was I was like kind of an over-the-hill MMA fighter, training at a gym out there because he was really into the fighting and all that. And so I actually had to go out there and train at a gym and do all that shit. And so I eventually became friends with this guy. The fighting angle really worked. And it came to a point where he took me out on his birthday. I didn't even realize it was his 40th birthday. And we were at a strip joint in Chicago, and he's buying shots and all that. And he tells me, he goes, "Listen, man, I can't even trust the people around me anymore." He goes, "I can't trust anyone around me, the people I grew up with." I knew who he was talking about, right? I knew he was talking about those guys the FBI sent him. He goes, "Man," he goes, I just want to thank you, for, being here." And he goes, "It's my birthday." And man, I remember feeling like shit, thinking, man, boy, you picked the wrong person to trust, buddy. Like, bad move, man. Because, and again, I had met his kids and the whole deal. I spent a lot of time with him. once I had kind of completed my assignment and done everything they wanted me to do with this guy, and that we had enough charges on him, they asked me to bring him into a hotel room at the Chicago airport. And he thought he was going to meet Hoist Gracie, the famous jiu-jitsu guy. But he was really meeting a bunch of ATF and FBI agents in a room with all boxes of evidence that we had on him. And he showed up with his son. It was terrible. And then he wouldn't believe that I was an undercover agent. So I had to go in there while they were talking to him. They made me go in there and show him my badge. And I've told this before, but I told him, I said, listen, man, I just want you to know that I'm doing my job, man. This was business. It wasn't personal. And he hadn't really said a word up to that point. And he stopped and he goes, don't tell me this isn't personal. He said, you've met my family. You met my friends. He goes, I brought you in my circle. He said, everything you've told me up to this point has been a fucking lie. He said, so don't tell me this isn't personal. And I didn't know what to say, right? I mean, he was right. So yeah, and that, like, cases like that, it gets tough. But then, you always just balance that out with, I mean, this dude, he planted bombs. So, and that's the biggest cowardly act you can do, because, what if a kid or someone, happens to be in a crossfire, right? So you always balance it out with, the real bad acts these people are doing, or we wouldn't be trying to infiltrate them. You know what I mean? But there's still that human side to it, man.
Hey, thanks for watching this clip. This clip came from one of my interviews I did in the past. Please hit subscribe if you want to get more clips like this. Also, if you want to watch the full interview, I'll put a link in the description. Or you can hit the button on the screen to watch the full interview.